This is Seattle's new Overlook Walk, an elevated pathway over Alaskan Way. It connects Seattle's famous Pike Place Market with the waterfront. But as you can see, this is no ordinary pedestrian bridge. It's integrated with the new Ocean Pavilion for the Seattle Aquarium and features public plazas, play areas, landscaping, space for future restaurants and vendors, and absolutely stunning views of Elliott Bay. It took 2 years to build and cost $70 million. Was it worth it? I'm gonna argue that yeah, it was. And it should serve as another example of why building elaborate and beautiful pedestrian infrastructure is a good public investment. Let's take a look at this thing after the bike bell. Before I keep going, I just wanted to say thanks for watching the channel. I'm posting this video on the 8th anniversary of City Beautiful. This video is not on my official schedule. I was just so inspired by the Overlook Walk that I felt like I had to make a video about it. And I figured, why not post it on the channel's anniversary? Because of that, I don't have a sponsor. If you want to support the video and this channel, consider supporting me on Patreon or by signing up for Nebula. There are links for both in the description. You can also support me by continuing to watch this channel and see if I go on for another 8 years. Who knows? Okay, like I said, I was completely inspired to make a video about this after a recent visit to Seattle. I was there to make my video about transit-oriented development. I'll post a link to that too, but I happened to be near the waterfront and I decided to check it out, and I'm glad I did. I've actually been covering Seattle's waterfront transformation for nearly 8 years. My first video on the topic was about the decision-making process associated with removing the Alaskan Way Viaduct, a double-decker highway that separated the city from its waterfront. The city opted to build a tunnel instead of rebuilding the highway or just scrapping a highway entirely and building a surface boulevard. I then did another video 4 years later about the proposed design of Alaskan Way, the surface boulevard that was going to be rebuilt to be more pedestrian and bicycle friendly. At the time, the project was really just getting started and the jury was out about how successful it would be. I was concerned that the new boulevard would still be too car-oriented, especially since they were building a highway tunnel right underneath it. So 3.5 years after that, I'm back to check it all out again. Now, as a side note, this is the cool thing about having a YouTube channel for 8 years. I can follow along with a project through every phase of its existence. City planners will know that we deal in timescales of years or decades, and now this channel has a timescale to match. It's kind of cool. Anyway, Alaskan Way is almost complete. They're still putting some finishing touches on the streetscape, and there's a really cool playground that's still under construction. But now that the Overlook Walk is complete, the overall vision for this part of Seattle is much clearer. And while I was critical but optimistic in the past, I'm mostly happy about how everything turned out. Okay, let's start by taking a tour of the Overlook Walk and then continue down to Alaskan Way. If you're coming from Pike Place Market, the first thing you're gonna do is cross over the road fairly high up. The market is at a much higher elevation, so the job of the Overlook Walk is to help you cross the street and then get you down to waterfront level. You begin at this tier here, and there's a nice space with what looks like a future storefront or restaurant. From here, you can actually go up instead of down to a restaurant, higher overlook, and a kids' play area. If you keep moving down, you'll get some really amazing views of the Seattle skyline. You can also see Pier 62, a flexible community space that the city activates with fun things for the community to do. By the time you climb on down to the street level, you're able to enjoy this nice amphitheater built into the structure, complete with great views at the bay. When you finally end up at the waterfront promenade and look back, you can see that you were actually standing on the new building for the Seattle Aquarium. I really like how wide this pedestrian area is along Alaskan Way. It feels generous and really nice to walk on. Luckily, pedestrian volumes are enough to make it feel lively but not crowded, at least on the Friday at lunchtime when I visited. I only have one nitpicky urban design critique, and that's because the space for cars is so wide and the pedestrian walk is so wide, you don't get a nice sense of enclosure that comes from having taller buildings nearby. There's not much of a relationship between the sidewalk and the buildings, which is too bad because buildings along the edge are pretty cool. But all in all, Seattle's waterfront is pretty great. Certainly better than what it looked like 8 years ago when I visited Seattle and stared down at a multi-level highway that marred the views and created a barrier to attractions like the Seattle Aquarium. It's the kind of waterfront a city as great as Seattle should have. The waterfront generally, and the Overlook Walk specifically, is another addition to the collection of public spaces where walking is the main attraction. The most prominent example of this in the United States is the Highline in New York City. It's a 2.3 kilometer long linear park in Manhattan built on top of an abandoned elevated railway. Today, it's a great place to stroll, sit, and enjoy the green space, or take in a unique view of the city from above. Fun fact, the swooshy building introduction I've been using on this channel since almost the beginning is a photo of New York from the Highline. Now, not all premier walking spaces have turned out perfectly. Vessel, a 16-story structure also in Manhattan that invites visitors to climb 2,500 steps, has received more mixed reviews. Some of this is due to its price tag, which is reportedly near $200 million. I also think it suffers in comparison to the other projects I discussed because this walk doesn't take you anywhere except for a view of the Hudson River once you get to the top. Overlook Walk and the Highline give you a view without having to climb a ton of stairs, and climbing stairs is pretty much the worst part of the walking experience. I suppose there might be something that almost feels dystopian about designing these elaborate spaces just to have people do nothing but walk on them. Like, walking is a pretty fundamental activity for humans. We just do it all the time. It's actually the most popular form of exercise. We don't really need a $70 million Overlook Walk to walk on. A simple bridge like the one farther down the waterfront would do just fine. When we start making walking an event instead of something every day, some people could say that we don't need sidewalks. We should just drive to special walking areas, kind of like driving to the gym or something. But I think these kind of special walking places actually do the opposite and help us remind us of why walking is so amazing. There's something really fun about watching a space like Overlook Walk or the Highline unfold in front of us, and they're designed to be experienced at walking pace. I think it inspires people to take to their own streets on foot. The views won't be as epic, but it's still fundamentally pleasant to take a stroll, assuming you have a safe place to do it. Let's build more amazing places to walk in all of our cities. More cool bridges, rails to trails projects, waterfront promenades, and paths through parks. Let's also not forget to make sure everyone has the ability to take a safe, comfortable walk around the block with their dog or kids. Thanks again for all of your support over the last 8 years. Happy New Year, and I'll see you in the next video.